you and I have had conversations about feminism and the current state of feminism. I wouldn't proclaim that I would be able to describe what the current state of feminism is in this country at this moment. But in terms of some of the movements within the feminist critique of family therapy, there was a period when I know you were very involved in some of those ideas. From my perspective, those ideas are remain incredibly important, and yet they've not got the prominence now in the 21st century that they had back in the 80s, the 90s. And maybe that's because of the wider cultural context and how feminist ideas do or don't get talked about, or do or don't get thought about.
I think so. I think what is happening to us in our domain is exactly mirrored, or is mirroring the larger social and cultural domain, because if you think about the 60s, 70s, early 80s, and that whole what gets called the second women's liberation movement, it feels in some ways some of the ideas that occurred there, some of the ideas that occurred with the early suffragettes, etc., have been maintained, have been built on. We are in evolved, developed, rich cultures. Women, we are in a position that we've never, our female ancestors have not been in for thousands of years. We are educated, healthy, and we have a considerable amount of social and legal equality and a voice.
Yes.
Nevertheless, I think that it seems to me that there is a visible pull back again to the status quo ante. A kind of erosion of those ideas. Sometimes that's defended by saying, well, it's all been done.
Yes.
So don't go on and on and on, if it's very boring to go on and on about it. And people get angry if you say, well, let's look at some of the facts of differences still in access to education, salaries, who does most of what in relation to children, and of the very, very serious epidemic of violence against women. Now again, people come and say, yes, but sometimes women are violent to men. Yes, it's true. And women are violent to children in the same way that men are violent to children. But predominantly, as far as we can see, and it's not just the hidden nastinesses at home, it is murder rates, rape, and so on. The pattern goes male to female. Now, I don't think that, and I've said this in many, many places and ways, that's not about intrinsic gender characteristics. That's about what the power that is socially constructed around gender in society allows. Which is why mothers can be very violent to children, because they have power over children. In the same way that men can be violent towards other men, towards women, towards children, because the culture allows it. But there's a huge lot of denial of that going on. There is a great deal of equalizing in a way that feels quite problematic of culture, particularly in this country. I don't know if it's true in many other countries. It's less true, but people worry and say it is becoming more true, of women seeing equality as being about behaving equally badly. Getting as drunk, taking your clothes off in the high street and pole dancing, etc., 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 which I think is pretty distressing, and of young men being very, very depressed and feeling extremely disempowered educationally and so on, because girls are often doing better academically. It's a very complicated problem, and I do see a backlash happening. So I think we are not immune to it, and there's a debate going on in AFT at the moment, triggered exactly by some of this, which is fascinating. I'm not going to comment on it here, but it is fascinating. It's about time, seems to me, that we did again talk about it, because some of what I hear being said is exactly what we had to talk about in the 80s of saying that if we only look at the systemic interactive loop between people where one person is being violent, for example, or abusive in a variety of ways, we actually cooperate with that. We actually flatten out the situation that's going on. It's things like Laurie McKinnon wrote a beautiful paper a long time ago about what was being, sort of phraseology, the violent family, the anorexic family. But there's no such thing.
No.
I'm sure there are violent families where every single member of the family is violent, but that's not usually what's indicated by that.